The drill wasn't broken, it was just missing, sat in the hollow space on the shelf like a tooth knocked out in a quiet fight no one talks about. I used to lend him everything, my couch, my truck, my last beer, but now even getting back a screwdriver feels like begging a stranger. There was a time when I thought loyalty looked like always saying yes. You know that guy, the one who crashes for a few days and ends up becoming a shadow in your living room for months? That was Eddie. And I was the guy who handed him the spare key like it didn't cost a piece of my peace every time the door opened at 2 in the morning. We met the usual way, friend of a friend, drifting through jobs, couch surfing across 3 zip codes. I didn't have much going on, still don't if I'm being honest. 33, single, work in construction when the work's there, fix things for neighbors when it's not. Live in a rental duplex that smells like the 70s and has one working ceiling fan. But it's mine, my name on the lease, my tools in the shed, my back that moved the couch in, my paycheck that bought the beer in the fridge. And yet somehow when Eddie needed a place to crash just for a bit, I made room. It started simple. One Saturday afternoon, I was reorganizing my tool shed. Hot day, sweat on my neck, cans of WD-40 and tangled extension cords everywhere. That's when Eddie called. "Hey man," he said, casual as ever. "You got a spot I can lay low for a few days? Place I was at kinda fell through." I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to help, I've always been the guy who helps, but because I'd heard the same story from Eddie 3 times already in different variations. Lost a job, girlfriend kicked him out, roommate bounced. Still I said yeah. Cleaned the couch, picked up some frozen pizzas, even gave him the Wi-Fi password without making him ask. The first 3 days were fine. He was polite, cleaned up after himself, even offered to help install a new light fixture in the kitchen. We cracked open beers after and watched some old MMA reruns. Then the 4th day came. He didn't come home that night. I texted him around 11, no answer. Next morning, he strolled in with a box of donuts and a wild story about running into a girl he used to know from Bakersfield. I didn't push it, not my place to police someone else's life. I figured he was grateful, figured he'd be gone soon. Except he was. Weeks passed. He started keeping odd hours. I'd wake up and find crumbs on the counter, laundry moved from the washer to the floor, tools missing from the shed. "Yo, you seen my cordless drill?" I asked one Sunday while we were both watching football. He barely looked up. "Oh yeah, I borrowed it. Needed to hang a shelf over at my buddy Marcus's place. I'll bring it back tomorrow." Tomorrow didn't come. At least not with the drill. This is the part where I should have set a boundary. But I didn't. Because part of me still thought maybe he just forgot. Maybe he'll bring it back if I don't make a big deal out of it. Besides, I didn't want to seem petty. It was just a drill, right? But it wasn't just a drill. That tool had helped me patch holes, hang shelves, install cabinets, and earn side money when things got tight. More than that, it was mine, not some community resource to pass around like a borrowed hoodie. Still, I let it slide. And then the pattern started. The angle grinder was next, then the socket wrench set, my heat gun, my crowbar. One by one, pieces of my shed went missing. Every time I brought it up, he'd have a new reason. "Oh, it's in my car. I left it at Jess's place, I'll grab it tomorrow." "Crap, you need it back, I thought you were done with it." What was I supposed to say? Yes, I need back the things I worked for. So I started keeping a list, quietly, in a spiral notebook I kept in the drawer under the sink. One night I came home late from a drywall job and found my front door open. Not wide open, just cracked. Eddie was on the couch, controller in hand, playing my PS4, shoes on, plate of nachos half finished beside him. There was an empty beer can on the floor. "Hey," I said, trying to sound neutral. Door was open. He shrugged. "Yeah, went out for a smoke, must have not shut it all the way." I picked up the beer can, this the last one. "I think there's one left, bottom shelf." I opened the fridge, empty. He didn't even look up. The next morning, I decided to go get my tools back. Figured I'd ride over to Marcus's house. I knew the guy vaguely, we'd met at a barbecue once. But when I asked Eddie for the address, he just said, "I'll get it to you later. He's moving anyway, so I'll probably grab your stuff when I help him." That was 2 weeks ago. And then it happened. A neighbor, Mrs. Kelsey, older woman who lives 2 doors down, called me over to help fix her gate, said the latch was busted. I told her I'd be there in the afternoon. Went to the shed. Nothing. The new latch kit I bought, gone. My socket wrench set, still missing. Screwdrivers, scattered, half of them heads bent or rusted from being left outside. I called Eddie. No answer. Send a text. Need my tools back today. Read at 2:41 p.m. No reply. That night I waited till he came in. It was around 11:30. He was laughing on the phone when he stepped through the door. I stood in the hallway. He stopped short. Oh hey man, didn't know you were still up. I didn't bother smiling. We need to talk. He pocketed his phone. Okay. I need my tools back, all of them, tomorrow. He blinked. Dude, it's not that serious. I said I'd bring M. It is serious. I've asked 5 times. They're mine. I use them to work. He scoffed like I was being dramatic. Bro, calm down. You act like I stole M. Did you ask before taking them to someone else's house? He didn't answer. Just ran a hand through his hair and muttered, Jesus man. That's when I said it. I think it's time you moved out. He looked up startled. What? You said a few days. It's been 3 months. His mouth twisted. Wow, so that's how it is. No, I said, this is how it has to be. He didn't yell, didn't curse. He just walked past me to the couch, grabbed his jacket and said, whatever man, I'll come get my stuff tomorrow. Then he left. That was 5 days ago. The tool's still not back. The couch still smells faintly like his cologne. The notebook under my sink now has a red line under his name. And I've been standing in the shed holding the charger to a drill that isn't here, wondering how many tools I loaned out without realizing they weren't just wrenches and bits. They were trust, time, and now even a text feels too expensive to send. It was 6:42 on a Thursday morning when I saw his name light up my phone. No text, just a missed call, 1 ring, maybe 2, like he wanted the log to show he tried. I didn't call back. I didn't even listen to the voicemail until after lunch. Hey man, I'm gonna come by later for my stuff, cool, don't trip. That was it. No apology, no mention of the tools, no explanation for the silence. Just don't trip. It echoed in my chest longer than it should have, not because I missed him, not anymore, but because it felt like the final confirmation that I'd let someone treat my life like a waiting room. I spent that morning reorganizing the shed. Not for the first time, it had become my way of regaining control, lining up screws by size, wiping rust off pliers, marking tape where socket heads used to be, a ghost inventory basically. I kept the notebook open on the counter. Every time I reached for something missing, I'd write a line. Cordless drill, Milwaukee, loan not returned. Wrench set, Craftsman, red box, unknown location. Stud finder, disappeared after gate job. Heat gun in his trunk, never confirmed. Each bullet point felt like an IOU from a friendship that had run out of credit. Around 3:15 p.m., I heard tires on gravel. Didn't look out the window, didn't want to give him the satisfaction. Instead, I opened the door and waited on the porch. Eddie stepped out of a car I didn't recognize. Black Nissan, dent on the side, backseat full of clothes. He was wearing sunglasses even though the sky was overcast. Hoodie sleeves rolled up, 2 rings on his fingers, a pack of Newports sticking out of his pocket. Hey, he said like we were just catching up. I didn't reply. He scratched the back of his neck. You got my duffel. I nodded. Inside, closet. He didn't ask to come in. He just walked past me like it was still his place, like nothing had changed. When he came back out, he was holding the bag and the denim jacket he'd left hanging on the coat rack. That everything? I asked. He paused, adjusting the strap. Yeah, I think so. I didn't move. What about my tools? He shrugged. Man, I told you I'll bring M back. Chill. I didn't chill. You've been saying that for over a month. At least bring me my drill today. He looked away, jaw tight. I'm in the middle of stuff, man. I'll get it to you. When? He laughed under his breath. Damn, you really keeping score like that? Yes, I said, because it matters. He didn't like that. You could see it in his shoulders, how they tensed up like he was trying not to say something mean. You know what? He said, I don't even need this drama. You act like I robbed you. You didn't ask to take half of what you took. You said I could use your stuff. No, I said, my voice flat. I said you could borrow my couch, you took everything else. That did it. He stepped back, raised his hands like I was the one being unreasonable. I'll drop your crap off when I get a minute, Jesus. Then he turned, got in the car, and slammed the door. I stood on the porch long after the car disappeared. Neighbors must have seen Mr. O'Donnell next door was pretending to rake gravel, but I could feel his eyes. Didn't matter. I wasn't ashamed of asking for my things. I was ashamed it took me this long to say something out loud. That night, I walked back into the shed and sat on the little stool by the workbench. The air smelled like cedar dust and WD-40. Familiar, mine. I reached up to the top shelf, pulled down an old tin box I hadn't opened in years. Inside were photos from the year I moved into this place. One caught my eye. Eddie in a beanie holding a drill, my drill, making a goofy face while installing my curtain rods. We ordered tacos that night, ate them sitting cross-legged on the living room floor because I hadn't bought a dining table yet. It felt like a different lifetime. Back then, helping each other felt mutual. Back then, he was grateful. Now he couldn't be bothered to return a single item he borrowed. I decided to try one more time. Shot him a text the next morning. Hey, just give me a time, I'll come pick up the tools myself, no beef. Left it at that. He read it within 5 minutes. Didn't reply. 3 days passed. I didn't text again, I didn't call, but I did make a decision. Saturday morning, I drove across town to Marcus's place. I figured if Eddie wasn't going to return my stuff, maybe I could salvage a little dignity by tracking it down myself. Marcus answered the door in a backwards cap and gym shorts, holding a Red Bull. Yo, he said, squinting, you're Dave, right? Yeah, sorry to show up like this, just wondering, Eddie said he left some of my tools here. Marcus scratched his chin, oh damn, the red toolbox. I nodded. Yeah, that's here, been in my garage for like weeks, he never came back for it. Mind if I grab it? He shrugged, be my guest, honestly I didn't even know it wasn't his. The moment I stepped into the garage, I saw it. My red Craftsman box, smudged with paint flecks and duct tape residue, but still mine. Beside it was the heat gun and the drill charger and my work gloves. I felt something twist in my chest. Not anger, not really. Just grief, like I was staring at the remains of a friendship in pieces. I carried the box out myself. Marcus held the door open. Look man, I didn't know there was beef, hope you guys sorted out. Yeah, I said, me too. But I didn't mean it. Not anymore. That night I cleaned every tool. Used an old toothbrush to scrub the rust out of the wrench teeth, wiped the handle of the heat gun with Lysol, rewrapped the power cords with Velcro straps, sharpened the utility knife blades. It wasn't just about the tools. It was about reclaiming what was mine. At midnight my phone buzzed. One new message from Eddie. You seriously went to Marcus's, that's low bro. No thanks for not tossing my duffel. No sorry I disappeared. Just blame. I sat with it for a few minutes. Then I texted back. You left it there, you said you'd bring it back, you didn't. We're done here, Eddie. He replied. Whatever, keep the rest if it means that much to you. I didn't answer. Because at that point I realized it never meant anything to him. But it meant everything to me. Not just the tools, but the space to be respected. The next morning, I donated the denim jacket he left. Put the couch cushions in the sun to air out. And taped a new label on the toolbox. DF, property of the one who actually buys the screws. Halfway through coiling my extension cord, I heard a knock on the back fence, 3 taps, then nothing. I didn't stop rapping. I already knew who it was. No one else knocked, like they were too guilty to use the front door. Eddie hadn't texted again since the last passive-aggressive message. But there he was, a silhouette behind the wood slats, shifting his weight like a kid outside the principal's office. I let him wait. Finished the cord. Hung it back on the pegboard. Then I wiped my hands on my jeans and walked over. Didn't open the gate. Just said you lost. His voice came low like it had been practiced. Just figured I'd come get the rest of my stuff. I didn't answer, let the silence hang. He added, the hoodie, the sneakers, you still got 'em. They're in a bag, been in the hall closet for 2 weeks. Another pause. Can I grab M? I'll bring them to the front, I said. Then turned and walked away. Truth is, I had that bag ready the night I cleaned the tools. Rolled up the hoodie, tied the shoelaces together, tossed in the half-used bottle of cologne he always left on my bathroom counter. I even wrote his name on a post-it and slapped it on the plastic handle, because I knew, deep down, this moment would come. Not because he cared, but because he hated not having the last word. When I handed him the bag at the front door, he looked smaller. Not physically, he was still broad-shouldered, still had that fake confidence that comes from living out of a backpack and pretending it's a choice. But something in his face looked deflated. Thanks, he muttered. I nodded, about to shut the door. But he didn't leave. Just stood there looking down at the steps. I didn't mean to make it weird, he said finally. Too late for that. You used me, I said, not just for the couch, for rides, food, tools, time. He blinked. Dude, I didn't use you. You didn't respect me, that's the same thing. His jaw clenched. Come on, man, I was going through stuff. You still are, and that's not my fault. He stared at the bag like it might start talking, then looked up. You were like the only person I thought would never turn on me. I held his gaze. I didn't turn on you, I just stopped letting you turn me into your fallback plan. He didn't get loud. Didn't throw a fit. Just nodded once, the kind of nod that says, fine, you win, even if there's no game. Then he walked off. No hug, no handshake. Just footsteps down the gravel. I shut the door. Locked it. And exhaled. That should have been the end. It was. Because 2 weeks later, I got a call from Jess. She used to date Eddie off and on, the kind of relationship where they both refused to admit it was over, even though they'd already deleted each other on social 5 times. Hey, she said casual, you got a sec? Yeah, what's up? Did Eddie leave a jigsaw at your place? I frowned. No, why? Because he said it was yours and he left it here, but I don't think it's yours. I sat up straighter. What kind of jigsaw? Blue battery-operated Ryobi. My chest sank. That's mine. Thought so. Turns out, Eddie had been bouncing around again. Couch to couch, city to city. And wherever he went, he brought a little tool starter pack with him, stuff I recognized immediately from my old collection. She sent a picture. I counted 3 things from the list in my notebook. All of them returned, apparently. To the wrong person. Can I come grab him? I asked. She hesitated. You sure you want to get dragged back into this? I'm not doing it for him, I'm doing it for me. She paused. Okay, I'll leave them on the porch. The drive to her place took 40 minutes. I listened to talk radio the whole way to keep my thoughts from spiraling. When I pulled up, the tools were exactly where she said. A cardboard box. Dusty, unloved. Inside, my jigsaw, 1 missing drill battery, a dented hand sander, and the tape measure I'd marked in Sharpie with DF 3 years ago. I stood there on her porch longer than I meant to. Not because I was waiting for her, but because I didn't want to carry this box one more step. On the drive home, I kept glancing at it in the passenger seat. It looked smaller than I remembered, like shrinking your past into 1 square foot of cardboard made it easier to leave behind. But it wasn't that easy. Because when I got home and unloaded it, I noticed something else. A pair of work gloves that weren't mine. Newer, bigger size. Eddie's. Tossed in the box like a message. Or maybe a peace offering. I didn't know. Didn't care. I threw them out. I didn't hear from him again for a while. Then one afternoon, while I was working on a custom shelving install for Mrs. Kelsey's pantry, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was a screenshot of my Facebook profile, with the words, "This clown crying over tools he probably stole himself law." No name attached. But I didn't need one. Because under the post, in the comments, I saw Eddie's name. Egging it on, laughing. Calling me a broke DIY weirdo. Something inside me went cold. Not angry. Just tired. Like I'd been hiking uphill too long carrying someone else's backpack. I sat down on Mrs. Kelsey's step and let the screwdriver rest in my lap. Then I opened Facebook and reported the post. Blocked him. Deleted the app. I didn't even tell anyone. Because there was nothing left to prove. Not to him. Not to whoever thought it was funny. Just to myself. The next day I walked past the shed and paused. Opened the door. Stood in the middle of the space and looked around. Socket wrench back on the pegboard. Jigsaw recharged. Hammer still in the holster on the wall. I'd got almost everything back. Except the time I spent thinking I had to give it away to be liked. That night I started writing a new list in the notebook. Not of missing things, but of what I still had. Roof that holds. Tools that work. Job next week. Couch to myself. Silence when I want it. It was the first list that felt complete. And not one item had anything to do with Eddie. I used to think being generous would come back around, that if you gave without keeping score, people would remember. Turns out people like Eddie remember, but only what they think they gave you. A month passed without incident. Work picked up, small contract jobs, a couple fence repairs, and a full weekend installing custom built-ins for a retired couple in the next town over. I was back in rhythm, back to waking up before 7 without dreading who might be on my couch. The house felt different, airier. It's weird how much emotional space one person can take up without saying a word. On a quiet Wednesday, I ran into Marcus again. Not on purpose, I was getting oil and a filter at the auto supply store and he walked in while I was checking out. He nodded, "Yo, Dave." "Marcus." He walked over, hands in his hoodie pocket. "That toolbox still treating you okay?" I chuckled, "Better than the last guy who touched it." He smiled, but it faded quick. "Hey, not trying to stir anything, but you heard about Eddie." I stiffened, "No, and I'm good not knowing." Marcus shifted, "Yeah, I get it. Just figured you'd want a heads up. He's been telling people you owed him money, that you kicked him out over $100. I blinked. "What?" "Said you stiffed him after a drywall job." I laughed loud enough that the cashier looked up. Eddie's never held a trowel in his life. Marcus nodded slowly, didn't think it sounded right. That night I kept thinking about it. Not because I cared about what Eddie was saying, that bridge was already charcoal. But because I realized something, I hadn't just let him borrow tools, I'd let him borrow my reputation. Introduced him to clients when he needed work, mentioned his name to neighbors, gave him rides to gigs, cautioned on behavior I didn't really agree with just to keep the peace. And now he was rewriting the story, painting himself as the one betrayed. A week later it escalated. I got a call from Rafi, a guy I'd done subcontract work with a couple years back. Real stand-up guy, runs a small flooring business. We'd kept things friendly even after our project wrapped. He sounded annoyed. "Yo, Dave, did you recommend some dude named Eddie to my cousin?" I paused. "No, why?" "'Cause this guy showed up with your name, said you worked together, claimed he used your shop and tools." I felt heat in my ears. Absolutely not. He showed up late, didn't bring any gear, left halfway through sanding, and disappeared. I gripped the phone tighter. "Rafi, I didn't send him, and if he uses my name again, call me right away." "Already blocked him," he said, "but you might want to get ahead of it. He's dropping your name like a business card." That night, I pulled out the old spiral notebook and flipped to a blank page. Wrote across the top in thick black ink. Stuff Eddie took that physical. My name. My silence. My weekends. My sleep. My boundaries. I almost didn't do anything after that. Almost told myself it was just noise, that no one would believe him anyway. But then I thought about the next guy he might do this to. And the next neighbor. And the next tool set. And I couldn't stay quiet anymore. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I posted on Facebook. Not some rant, not name calling. Just a simple direct post. If anyone is approached by someone named Eddie Mullins claiming to be associated with me professionally, he's not. He stayed at my place for several months, borrowed tools, and never returned most of them. Recently, I've been told he's used my name to get jobs and then ghosted. I'm not looking for drama, just setting the record straight. I thought I'd feel petty. Instead, I felt clean. Like I'd rinsed the last bits of mold from a dish that had sat too long in the sink. The comments trickled in. Neighbors thanked me for the heads up. One old friend DM'd me saying, "Wow, same Eddie from Fresno, he pulled something similar on my cousin." It was like the dam cracked. People had stories. People had been silent. And somehow, I'd been the one to open the window. Then Eddie texted. From a new number. Wow, really a public post. I didn't reply. He followed up. You're making me look bad over tools. Still didn't reply. Last one. You better hope I don't air your shit too. That one sat with me for a minute. Then I blocked the number. Again. A few days later, I got a knock at the door. It was Mrs. Kelsey. She held out a manila envelope. This came to my place by mistake, think it's for you. I thanked her and brought it inside. Inside was a folded sheet of printer paper. Typed. No signature. No return address. Just one line. You were never better than me, just had more shit. I don't know if he mailed it. Maybe it wasn't him. But I knew the tone. I knew the resentment baked into the corners of the words. It was Eddie all over. Still trying to level the playing field by pretending I'd only won because I had a drill and a lease. That night I didn't rage. I didn't draft a comeback. I made dinner, stir-fried noodles and leftover chicken. I put on music, cleaned my counters, sat down at the table and ate alone. And halfway through my meal, I realized I didn't feel alone anymore. I felt at peace. Not because everything was fixed, but because I'd stopped making room for people who refused to build anything. Eddie didn't just borrow things. He borrowed space. And it was time I took it back. That weekend, I cleaned out the shed again. But not just to clean. I installed a deadbolt. Put up pegboard lighting. Labeled everything with proper tags. Even hung a sign on the door. If you earn IT, don't touch it. I took a picture. Printed it. Pushed the printout into the last page of the spiral notebook, the one with his name scribbled across a dozen angry lists. Then I shut the notebook. Put it away. And didn't touch it again. The garage looked picture perfect. Every tool hanging straight, every label facing forward, even the broom leaned at the right angle. But my chest, it still carried the dent of a friendship that ended like a car door slammed too hard. Neat didn't mean healed. It just meant I stopped letting the mess spread. 6 months passed. No texts, no missed calls, no accidental tags on social. Eddie was a ghost, or maybe I'd finally become invisible to him. Either way, the silence stayed. And I kept moving. Work filled the gaps, built 2 decks that summer, painted an entire rental duplex top to bottom, took on more custom cabinetry jobs, and even taught a beginner's workshop at the local rec center. People came, listened, paid, thanked me. I didn't need a crowd, I just needed consistency. And space to breathe. One Saturday afternoon, I was finishing up some sanding on a cherrywood bookcase when a truck pulled into the driveway. Not mine. Not a client's. I peeked through the blinds. It was Eddie's brother, Alan. I hadn't seen him in years. I opened the door cautiously. He raised a hand in greeting. Hey man, sorry to drop in. It's all right, I said, stepping out to the porch. Everything okay? He looked tired, like someone who'd been pulling emotional weight for too long. Just figured I should give you a heads up, Eddie's back in town. I didn't say anything. Alan continued, he's not doing great, burning bridges, lost some temp work, got kicked out of a place in Eastwood, been couch surfing again. My jaw tightened, not here. He nodded quickly, I know, not why I'm here, just thought you deserved to hear it from someone instead of him showing up uninvited. I exhaled, thanks really. We stood in silence for a beat. Then Alan added, you were good to him, you know, better than most. I wasn't trying to be better, I said, I was just trying to be a decent person. Alan gave me a sad half-smile, sometimes that's too much for people who don't want to carry anything. He left after that. Didn't stay for a beer. Didn't ask for more. Just delivered the message and drove off. The next day, I took a walk around the block, not because I needed air, but because I needed to be reminded that this was my neighborhood, my house, my name on the mailbox. The shed still stood behind it, quiet, locked, organized. No half-used beer cans on the porch. No strangers using my drill. No one laughing at me for asking for my things back. Around dusk, my phone buzzed. Blocked number. No voicemail. No text. I didn't pick up. Didn't check who it might be. Because I'd already heard everything I needed to hear from him. A week later, I got a small envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside, a $20 bill and a folded sticky note. Scrawled in ballpoint pen. For the crowbar. That was it. No name. No apology. No request to talk. Just a weak peace offering with a thin layer of guilt on top. I held it in my hand for a long time. It should have pissed me off. But it didn't. Because that note wasn't for me. It was for him. A way to say I gave something back, even if it was too little, too late. I kept the 20. Not out of spite, but because throwing it away would have made me angry. Keeping it made me remember. Remember what happens when you don't put a value on your time, your tools, or your trust. The next time I hosted a barbecue, just a small one, 4 friends from the job site and Mrs. Kelsey's grandson who wanted to learn woodworking, we sat out back by the shed. I opened the doors wide so everyone could see the layout. People complimented it, asked about certain setups. One guy even took a picture of the drill rack. And I laughed. Because for the first time in years, the shed didn't feel like a museum of borrowed things. It felt like mine again. A few weeks later, I got a text from someone I barely knew, a woman named Marnie who used to work part-time at the hardware store. She said, "Hey, you're Dave, right? I think we have a mutual friend, or maybe had." I asked who. She said, "Eddie, he said you used to be close." I replied we were, until he stopped showing up for anything but a favor. She didn't argue. Just said, "Yeah, that tracks." I almost deleted the chat. But then she added, "Sorry, hope it's okay I reached out. I just needed to know I wasn't the only one." We talked more after that. Turned out she loaned him a drill battery. And a jacket. And a month of rent once back when he swore he'd found steady work. He never paid her back either. By fall we were dating. Flow steady. No borrowing, no testing limits. Just 2 people who'd been burned, building something honest out of scrap. One night I told her the whole story. Eddie. The tools. The silence. The manila envelope. The $20 bill. She didn't interrupt. Just sat with it. Then she asked, "Do you still have the note?" I shook my head, burned it with the old shed gloves. She smiled, good, that space was never for him anyway. And she was right. It was. Sometimes I still find odd pieces in the shed, a bolt that doesn't fit anything, a handle I forgot was broken. I hold them in my hand for a second. Then toss them. Not because they don't work, but because they don't belong. I used to think a friend was someone who stuck around no matter what. Now I know better. A real friend is someone who returns what you loan them, respect, effort, time, even if it's just a little worn. As for Eddie, I haven't seen him since. And I stopped wondering if I would. Because I already got the one thing he couldn't take. My space. Back. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one. ChatGPT can ma.